Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Paz, a rising VTuber and an artist. And today, we're gonna be hopping back onto that website that we found the other day. So, if you weren't here for Tuesday's stream, I wanted to look into something called the windmill principle, which is this idea that if I open up Clip Studio Paint real quick, let's see here. Aha. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of what happened last time, because it's a very simple principle, but it's also really fun to draw. So let's do this. We'll add a gradient here with, I'd say about this much. And what we'll also do is we'll also increase the brush size so we can have like a nice cliff for our windmill to rest on. And then what we'll do is we will just slowly construct our windmill. So the windmill principle is this idea that, let's say we have the windmill here, right? It looks like it's missing a vein, but that's because it's blending into the bottom here, right? But the principle posits that it's nice. There's like a very aesthetically pleasing effect when you are able to combine 4 different tone combinations. So let's try this. I think it's something like this at least. I literally have the windmill picture somewhere else, but I am not really recalling that where I put it right now. Actually, hang on, I could just open it. Okay, let's do a quick check, right? Like, I think this might be an interesting thing to do. This is the windmill principle as I recall it. Let's see what the actual one looks like. Okay, I wasn't completely off. Okay. Let's compare and contrast real quick. Okay, we have this and this. Hang on one moment. I need to check something very quickly. And we're back. Apologies for the delay. I thought I heard my apartment's door opening, and it scared me for a second. I'm the only one that has a key to this apartment, so it would be really scary if somebody just decided to show up. Right. Okay, and I see now that I've made a little bit of a tactical error. So it would be more like... be a little bit more like this. Shifting this about this much. Yeah, okay. And you know, we can just fill that in with whatever. Pretend that looks normal. Let's see if we can actually blend it out a little bit. See if we can't patch it up a little better. I mean, that's pretty bad, but you know, it's better than nothing. But yeah, as a recap of last time, the windmill principle is the idea that... hang on. There we go. A picture has like this very satisfying quality when you've got 4 combinations. So over here we have Dark on Dark, or Daredevil, depending on whether you read comics. I don't think I've actually ever read a Daredevil comic. I don't read a lot of Western comics, period. But yeah, we've got Dark on Light here. Or Light on Dark, actually, because it's light against a dark background. We've got, hang on. We've got light on light over here, which is a light object against a light background. And down here we have dark on light. And apparently this creates a very pleasing effect. So you can play around with this a little bit. The idea is to just have that combination. And the website that we use to find out about this effect, about this particular tool, is this one over here. I am a competent streamer who always has his web source ready, even if I have to scroll really, really quickly on my OBS sources list. Here we go. The blog of James Gurney, also, which is called the Gurney Journey, which is really funny. For some reason, I thought Gurney was specifically related to windmill. I don't know why. Gurney always brings to mind to me like some kind of mechanical, simplistic device like some medieval peasant would use. But it's actually just like one of those rolling hospital beds. But yeah. We had this very useful explanation of what the windmill principle was. But then what I saw was that there were more posts like this one because, you know, there's a blog index about many different topics and sources of knowledge. But this one in particular is about composition. And I feel like that one has a lot of interesting articles. So let's quickly take a look through that one. None of these are particularly long, it feels like. So let's take a look at this one. Oops. This one seems to be a quote. Early in his career, Andrew Wyeth did this painting of his neighbor Walt Anderson walking through a field. Andrew showed the painting to his father, N.C. Wyeth, who told his son to put a gun in the subject's arm and a couple of hunting dogs in the scene, to make it more like action-like. When he left, Andrew's wife Betsy told him, "Don't listen to him, he's wrong." The father, N.C., was worried that his son wouldn't be able to sell a painting like that, but he completely missed what his son was doing. And Betsy, at that young age, realized what he was doing. A lone figure walking away from you. That painting became Turkey Pond, a 1944 egg tempera that served as a precedent for Christina's World 4 years later. A little glimpse of the harbor and the far shore is framed by the boat and the buildings. I call this composition a keyhole view. Oh, I see. Lure the viewer's attention back in space. Okay, I kind of see what you're getting at. In this painting inside the farrier's shop has a keyhole view on the doorway on the left. It is by Ferdinand Georg Waldmüller. Uses a similar compositional strategy here. Okay. We can borrow one of these? I kind of like this one, honestly. But this one's also really nice. Let's try this. But yeah, the keyhole, huh? We should probably... I don't know why, but my job of like cell blending... Hang on, maybe we can just blend this out a little bit. It looks a little better. Still looks like there was something there, but you know, can't win them all. Also, I should probably try to finish the frame here. Okay, but the keyhole view, huh? Okay, I think I get it. So let's begin with the actual keyhole, so to speak, right? That's going to be this kind of trapezoid, question mark? L shape over here. Slightly darker around this section here. Wait, was that right? Yes, it is. Also, this shouldn't be leaning towards red like that. Also, I'm painting it on the same layer, so let's try that again. Although it is very efficient. Okay, we'll drag this out to over here. We can actually make this part a little bit smaller. Okay, this is just a slight bit darker than this part here. This part should be smaller as well. It's kind of exciting. I don't... I can recognize a couple of classical paintings, but a lot of them are beyond my reckoning. Okay, how exactly does this roof work? There's a ladder there, but... where does that lead exactly? Oh, well, one brick at a time, I suppose. What we could do is we could add this section here to represent that roof part there, and also this part here. The hearth is a little bit darker, so maybe we can add this like this. We can also add the horseshoe right here. No, we should add that last. No, there's more contrast to this. This is a toughie. I'm having fun though. I don't know. I'm assuming that if you do this a lot and you keep trying to take notes and understanding where you went wrong, I'm guessing it's pretty good for your ability to understand a piece altogether. Alright, for now, let's focus on done rather than perfect. And we'll use a slightly different color for the guy back here, or maybe even for the anvil. Okay. We'll use this to kind of put this up here, and then we can actually use the horseshoe, which should be up here. Damn, this composition shit kind of tough. We also still need to get the references for everybody else together. Interestingly, I think the granny back here is actually... hang on. You know, maybe we can just like lump them to make them lumps. I know it'd theoretically be easier to do this with the image under the area where I'm drawing, but I feel... I don't know how to put it. It feels more rigorous. It feels like I'm using more muscles trying to dart my eyes back and forth. I don't know, maybe this is the right way to do it. I'm not sure. Also, there's a little bit more space here. Or there's supposed to be, at least. Okay, the granny's head is here. The guy's head, question mark, is over here. I like that I'm struggling this much. Or actually, there's also a light point back here in the windows, come to think of it. Okay, let's put one arm here. The head here. The other arm here. Is he like mending a doll or something? I'm not sure. It's a very low resolution picture and it's a little bit hard to see. Okay, and then we have the baby right here, and the abuelita right there. The younger child here. And over in the distance, there is, again, a little bit of variation in the actual colors shown. There's, what is that? There's some kids fooling around out in front. Pretty funny. So it's so funny. Imagine just tussling outside a blacksmith house must feel kind of badass, right? Like imagine you're just running the ones with your best buddy, and in the background you just hear the clang 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 of the anvil. It must feel kind of awesome. Closest thing they had it back in those days to having like a Tekken stage for real. Okay, but I think I'm seeing what they mean. Let's try a little trick just real quick. There's a special tonal correction brush called brightness and contrast. So what happens if we increase the brightness and also the contrast? Okay. A little bit easier to see. This low-key looks like the guy from Lisa the Painful. Brad Armstrong. So like if I just like yeah, that looks a little Brad Armstrong-y. Okay. We should probably you know what I should do is probably label these. Let me just add some space up top here. Okay, and then we call this one keyhole. Nice. Okay. Well, let's hop back to the blog and see what's good. First reading, second reading. In a painting, you've got just one image to tell a story. But you can design it so the viewer begins to receive one impression, then switch to a different impression after a moment or two. This is called the first reading and the second reading. In this picture, I'm aware of myself reacting that way as I decode the image over the first 2 seconds. There's a lady with her kid reaching up. The kid is scared. Oh, there's a crouching lion. How did that get in the house? Oh, I see. It's a lion rug and her little brother's under it pulling a prank. Look at this. Look at his little face. Bro knows what he did. To carry off this narrative device, Belgian realist painter Jean Verhaes had to make sure the viewer recognized a snarling lion before the boy's face. Ah, mira tú. Why should I mask values? Also, by the way, this blog is still very, very active. Like, there's been at least one blog post in October, and there seems to be at least one a week or sometimes more. Before electricity, nighttime seemed a lot brighter. That's because electric lights constrict our pupils, making darkness darker. Read more on my free Substack. That's great, man. Substack, huh? I've heard of this place, but I've never really looked into it too much. Why should I mass values? After yesterday's post, which is about grouping tonal values, okay, C via Seattle asks, why is value massing so important? I've read your entire blog, including everything about shape wielding, read Arthur Wesley Dow's book on noton studies, and generally scoured the internet. So I know how to mass values, but I don't have a deep understanding as to why it is so important and powerful. Can you possibly elaborate? The reason value massing is so important is that a simple tonal design has much more impact. You can tell at a glance what's going on, and it reads from across the room or when reduced to a tiny size. The parts of the scene that are less important can be relegated to light on light mass or dark on dark mass. The parts you want the viewer to notice are highly contrasting. Here, the wedding dress connects to the tablecloth and the female figures behind, while the people dressed in dark clothes join together to make a simple shape. True. Okay. And there's more on that over here. Grouping tonal values. Organize your values or tones into light groups and dark groups. My main focus is to create a single unbroken mass of dark for the trees, which then connects to the shadowed parts of the structure and the garbage can. Okay, I see. In this 15-minute video, I demonstrated my approach, concluding a little about perspective, brushes, and compositional design. Okay. Alright. Let's grab this one. I like the contrast in this first Howard Pyle bit. But I kind of see what they mean by... Hang on. Let me shrink down keyhole just a tiny bit. Yeah, that seems good. Okay, moving on. Let's begin a similar way. Let's start off with like a darker base. Let's try that again. Let's try that one more time. There we go. Okay. I'm kind of looking into this whole compositions and values business as well because I want to get better at cell shading. And the problem with that is that cell shading requires a lot of knowledge of values and such. Because I feel like I struggle to go purely cell shading and purely painterly shading. I almost always end up blending them a little bit. And while that can't just be my style, it's also frustrating because I feel like I can't accomplish what I mean to accomplish. Also, it's a little distracting having to flip between them, so I'm just going to keep the actual picture open in a separate window. Alright, let's do that then. Let's start with a chair in this guy's whole body. Oh, it's a chair and a table! How about that? See, that's what value massing is about. I thought that this was just like a table, but he's also pulling out a chair. No, ¿verdad? Mira tú. Giving this guy the worst chin ever. What am I doing to this man? Okay. And then there's also a little bit of a mix over here with how the fabric is draped over her shoulders. It's a little bit less intense than that, but still darker. But yeah, notice how the chair's kind of interior angles are expertly obscured by the shadows here. I don't know, that's kind of cool. It's I'm always looking for ways to add less detail than I have to, right? It's important to be lean when it comes to how much detail you include. There's even like a quill or something on the chair. What is that? Okay, we're gonna add this here, and we're actually gonna make this part almost as bright. This one here needs to be almost like a middle point for the hand. The rest of the painting actually does have a lot of this bright tone to it. So let's try and go for that. Maybe a little bit brighter than that. Just so it doesn't get confused with the background, you see. If I grab this one. Yeah, okay. Trying to figure out her hair as well. Kind of like that? A little bit. Could use some work. Also, I put them way closer together than they should be. My fault. Okay. There's almost like a slightly lighter bit of leaf going on back here, too. Speaking of leaves, I saw somebody talking shit about like the new Avatar fighting game that's coming up, where they said that they're gonna play as Uncle Iroh and like have leaves on the vine as their background music. That is villainous. The good news is that like the only people who are playing this game are probably gonna be like, I don't know if the children know about Avatar: The Last Ender. Has that been on the air still? Like, is that still something that the youth have access to? Like, do they know about like the boomerang and whatnot? Do they know about like the little funny ball trick that Aang does? Or have I been left behind by technology? We can add a little bit of some. Actually, wait, that's nice. I like that. Let's do that first. I don't know. I'm worried that Avatar: The Last Airbender is quickly becoming old head media, which is the fate of everything, mind you. It's not something that you can prevent or avoid in particular, but you're also like You do also need to acknowledge that that's like it's an inevitability, but I want to be on top of whether it's happened yet or not. I get the feeling that like depending on how nasty they let you be in that game, we're gonna see some true generational players come out of that scene. Okay, see, now I understand that the white lines here for the additional brightness were not the right call. What we need is to deepen the shadows. Okay, and then over here. We can also have a little bit of a darker dark over here, over here, over here, and in a couple of places here. Also, the fire here needs to be more... There we go, like that. But yeah, now I feel like I'm starting to get it. I feel like because these are such notable examples, you need something strong to course correct, and then you can relax a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like because eventually you're gonna drift back to where you were. Overcorrection is in my opinion sometimes a better option, because then eventually you'll ease out of it and you'll reach like a happy medium. I guess it also depends on like when you stop overcorrecting though, because if you just overcorrect and keep overcorrecting, then you know a little bit of a vicious cycle. That's gonna that it's like when you okay. Let me give you an example. A while back, I'm almost certain this is why I had to get braces. I read about a phenomenon where like it said that because we developed forks, humans started to have a more natural overbite. Like before, like for gorillas and such, their teeth kind of line up perfectly so that they can act as guillotines, right? And that's how we used to be as well. And we used to have that more often because we'd often just like bite food, use a knife to cut it off, and then chew what we bit off. And that was kind of how we did shit back in the day. Now the problem is because I read that, I was like, oh, okay, so the actual angle I should be holding my mouth is like teeth put together like a guillotine, because I assumed that was like the right method. And over time, my dentist was like, yeah, no, you need braces, kid. And I'm really hoping that the reason I needed braces isn't just because I was like, ooh, try to imitate monkey. After reading an offhand passage from a book when I was like 7. That really would be the worst. I'm sure I would have needed braces anyway, though. Okay, that's one round done. What else we got? I really love the description that I have here of like shaking down this blog for art tips, because that's really what it feels like. Feels a little bit like I'm rifling through somebody's refrigerator for food and snacks. Breaking the foot line. Artists have long resisted placing elements that are cropped by the foot line, or the bottom edge of a composition. Even in busy, crowded scenes such as this outdoor market, the foot line is uninterrupted. Right, okay. There's a lot going on in this encampment. A horse, a wagon, and 3 figures, but the foot line is empty. So it is. Like an actor walking up to the footlights of a stage, the male figure comes close to the line, but does not pass it. The advent of photography, with its weird accidental croppings, is usually credited with awakening artists the possibility of an interrupted footline. Edgar Degas is often credited with being a pioneer in cropping the bottom edge, and many artists started doing it, such as Joaquin Sorolla. I find it takes conscious effort to crop figures or other elements by the footline, but it adds greatly to the effect of naturalism. Okay. Interesting. Actually, let me take a look at one of these other ones. Do I want to risk it for the biscuit with this one? Yeah, why not? You just gotta keep practicing. You gotta keep doing more. Okay. Let me try a different method. Let me start by making the shape and then painting that in. And now we can just focus on the actual parts here. Okay, so slightly lighter part up here. Let me bring that up just a little bit. And we got a little bit of another one up here. And that's going to be for the reflections of the buildings and the people on the street. Okay, and this is going to go like so. I like how wide this dude's pants are. He's got that shit on, not gonna lie. Oh, wait, did I put him too far to the left? No, surely not. Maybe I just need to make this gap smaller. That might be it. There we go. I'm gonna have your ass looking like Professor Layton when I'm done with you. Okay, there's also the figure of the woman back here. She has like these frills on her dress, which make a very distinctive outer edge. Kind of leaning forward a little bit in a hurry. There's supposed to be more space between them, but we take those. Okay, another dude in a top hat back here. A tree. I actually should put these in all black too. The bottom hem of this lady's skirt as well. Okay, then over here. Perfect. Oh, does she have her hands in one of those little furry pocket things? That's so cute. God, those things seem so handy. My hands get cold easily, but I also like being able to take them out at a moment's notice. Gloves are a little bit cumbersome, but honestly, I feel like between gloves and having like a a detachable hoodie front pocket, I think the gloves got it in terms of sheer convenience. But as an accessory, it's kind of cute. The valleys are a little bit all over the place on this one, though. I'm starting to see that. It's a little bit more scattered than I had thought. Although, I guess the two most important values, which are the two people up ahead, are always super clear, which is conflicting to me. Also, I accidentally made this bench this like elevated part a little bit too short. I guess this would be the bench, though. You know what I'm surprised there aren't more of? Jetpack Joyride likes. Like, I'm sure those were a thing back in the day, but I feel like I haven't seen anybody even like try to spin off the Jetpack Joyride thing. I remember everybody had that shit on their phones back in grade school. Well, no, middle school, I guess. I wouldn't have had a phone in grade school. I had a great phone in middle school, but great phone. I had a cell phone in middle school, but that was very exclusively one of those funny flip phone ones, which I always thought was hilarious. I love that stupid thing. It had ample room for like doohickeys and the shit to hang off of it. So I was always glad to add something new to it. Although I would also take it out of my pocket very roughly. So very rarely did my new doohickeys last. It was a bit sad. But I also do have like the privilege of saying that I at least owned a flip phone for a little while. So, you know, if I ever need to steal millennial valor, I have that option. Let's choose a midpoint between these two for the buildings back here. This should be way shorter. Finally Friday tomorrow, though. Anybody got plans for the weekend? Besides stream, I'm not sure what I should get up to. I was considering going to a thrift shop, but the thing is that it's the darndest thing. The kind of bus line, the transportation line that goes to the thrift shop from my house, the most convenient path is always blocked on weekends. Like the bus line just does not service that area on weekends. I don't know how that happens, but it does. But yeah, I basically have to take the long way around to get to the thrift shop if I want to do it. And that's like an hour plus of travel. I don't always have that kind of time. It's worth it though. I feel like I always find some kind of treasure whenever I'm at a thrift shop. Although that's probably also because I'm rather easily impressed. There has been like a generational find that I've been sitting on for a little while, but I'm still not sure if it's the right time to whip it out. I need to wait until like there's some kind of cataclysmic event and I need to show something off that'll really knock off somebody's socks. All right, let's see here. We can do better than that. I was just trying to frame this by adding a layer underneath and filling the expanded frame with black ink. There we go. But see, I'm missing a bunch of different people here. There we go. Okay. I wouldn't say I quite have the hang of this, but I think I understand a little bit more. 2 World War II posters. Okay, here we go. Recently, we saw the exhibition of World War II posters at the FDR Library and Museum in Hyde Park. Out of all the concepts in the show, let me focus on just 2 of them with very similar concept. Machine gunners in action. Let's compare the compositions. Your Metal Zeramite, a 1943 Jess Williams Schleicher. Okay. The Schleicher painting shows 3 figures, a background that's light and dark, lots of bullet casings flying, and a slight upward angle of the gun barrel. Okay. Let's Give 'Em Enough and On Time by Norman Rockwell. What strikes me is how much simpler and more memorable the Rockwell is. There's just a single figure. We don't see the gunner's face, and the background is black. The image is divided by a straight diagonal line, and the typography reads clearly against the light yellow background. By leaving out non-essential information, Rockwell makes a much stronger statement. In a poster, simplicity is crucial. Rockwell usually started out with a sketch made purely from his imagination and built up his final concept around it. The germinal idea, which says, "Are you backing me up?" is similar to the final, except that the soldiers turn towards us. Huh. Sheesh, this is all the way back in 2018. Okay. Book review. Fundamentals of composition. I will admit that fundamentals have been growing on me as of late. The ability to, I don't know. I've always been a strong proponent of movement over fundamentals, but sometimes those fundamentals hit. Alright, let's see. It's difficult to learn about the teachings of the Russian Academy because not much information is available in English. Fortunately, a few years ago, Vladimir Mogiletsev, let's try that. Mogiletsev, a professor at the Russian Academy of Arts in St. Petersburg, released 2 books, Fundamentals of Drawing and Fundamentals of Painting, which I've reviewed on the blog. Now, the 3rd book in his series, Fundamentals of Composition, is also available in English. Rather than thinking of composition in purely aesthetic terms, he starts with an emphasis on the concept or story that drives the picture. In this respect, Mr. Mogiletsev's approach is similar to Howard Pyle, who always focused on the concept that powered the picture and made sure the design supported that idea. Hierarchy of the details and unity. Huh. The book covers basic principles such as variety, shape, silhouette, edges, unity, rhythm, color, and texture. But his coverage of these familiar ideas is fresh and original, and he provides lots of examples. Okay. Rapin's painting of Jesus raising Jairus' daughter is analyzed in terms of the hierarchy of details. Instead of trying to reveal a hidden grid of geometric relationships, this approach breaks up the picture into interest areas to show what's most important in it. The shapes are mapped out like a puzzle and numbered according to their importance. Huh. That's odd. I would have thought that the guy in the middle here, right, this guy here, would have been like 3rd up or 2nd up. I don't know. For me, like, my eyes just drift towards the right on this one. I see. Okay. Evolution of a Picture, Part 1, Compositional Studies. Although many artists studied in 19th century ateliers, few of them published practical information about the actual methods used by masters of academic realism. In their books, authors like Harold Speed, Solomon, awesome name, and Charles Bark focus on mostly drawing and painting accurately when working from observation. It is much harder to find information about how academic artists develop their imaginative ideas. One exception is the following article from 1901 called Evolution of a Picture, a chapter on studies by Cabanel-trained Edgar Spear Cameron. This stuff is gold. Because it's so useful, I sent it to you in 4 installments. Very nice. The single effect. The picture which expresses something which has a reason to be is generally evolved with as much thought and care as a writer bestows on a serious article or a story and by somewhat similar processes. In a picture, whatever its subject may be, the unities are imposed by means of expression. A picture cannot well represent more than one idea, one place, or one instant of time. All that the artist has to say must be concentrated into one single effect, and consequently all of his study must be in the direction of elimination from the multiplicity of suggestions which nature makes to him, the material for a picture. I respect that. I honestly do feel like whenever I try to make something, I add like 5 or 6 different things to it. And I try to like make it multitask several times until eventually I'm like, you know what? We got to narrow the scope down. We have to focus up. As some writers are able to complete the composition of their articles in their minds before they begin to put their thoughts on paper, there are artists who are able to see the pictures finished before they begin to paint, but they are the rare exceptions. Okay. For any important pictures requiring arrangement or composition, as is the case for nearly all figure subjects, most artists make numerous studies. The title study applied to paintings shown in an exhibition is nearly always a misnomer. Such works are chiefly the work of students or painters who have more technique than ideas to paint, and were not painted as a study for something more important. That's a little harsh. When an artist has received his inspiration or found a motive and given the subject sufficient thought to have decided something on how it is to be treated, he generally makes a composition sketch, possibly several of them, before the arrangement of the picture is decided upon. These are almost always made out of his head, without models, with only the memory of effects previously observed in nature to guide him. Okay, let's keep this in another tab. I'm going to come back to this sometime later, but I feel like that's a lot. What does eye tracking tell us about the rules of composition? Oh boy. Oh, well, if it isn't our quota of bots. Hang on, let's get this fool out of here. Ben add Righteous Purveyor 0. Righteous Purveyor? Seriously, why do they get all the cool usernames? Righteous Purveyor feels like... I don't know, if I was in a group chat with a guy called Righteous Purveyor, I would feel I would feel like I was moving crazy. I would feel like a lion. Straight up. Let's keep looking at older posts. Rückenfigur, a German art term for a figure seen from behind and placed inside the scene as a proxy for the viewer. Such a figure invites the viewer to identify with the attitude or perspective of the person, who is usually central in the composition. By showing only the back of the person, we don't focus as much on their individual identity, and they seem more of a type. A Rückenfigur invites us to wonder what the figure is doing or thinking. and can lend an air of mystery to a scene. Ah. You know what? I'm kind of digging this one here with the lady with the bandana. Let's go with that one for a while. We've read like 3 articles without actually drawing anything. Let's correct that real quick. Okay. Then we shrink this down by, let's say, 5 pixels, and there we go. Okay. So, interesting note just off the beginning with the composition is that we have a lighter part up here. A slightly darker part right beneath that. A high contrast dark part right out underneath that. And then we have patches of green and blue down here, and some of... It feels like it's lighter, though. Feels like it's lighter, but richer. This one's a toughie. I think I'm actually gonna have to go like this, then. Yeah, okay. And then a little bit over here. No, the lighter color is appropriate. Let's go with that. I don't know if that's supposed to be like a bird or something. Is that supposed to be like a house? What is that off there in the distance? Maybe somebody who knows more about that field life can tell me. I'm stumped, personally. Okay, somewhere around here. That's a tangent right there. Let's not do that. God, one time I did imagine what would happen if I pulled up into somebody's stream, trying to do like a parody of that like best viewers on stream booth thing that I see so many bots doing. But the thing is that I know my friends, I know the people who I hang out with, and I know that if I did that, their reflexes would overpower like their ability to distinguish my username and the joke. Like almost automatically, I think they would they would like extinguish my life, and they'd be like, "Wait, was that Pabs?" Like maybe as they were writing ban ad whatever, right? They'd be like, "Pabs, did you get hacked?" Oh god, I'm not much for practical jokes, but sometimes you do just want to unsheath your blade, so to speak. Okay, so we're gonna have maybe this color here up for the blouse. Then a slightly lighter color for the handkerchief. Okay. Very good. Is her foot really that far back? No, it isn't. Let's do this then. Okay, what do we learn about this piece in particular? Actually, we could add a little bit more detail here. Just a little bit. Like that. Also, this should be just a tiny bit higher. This part can also stand to be a little bit more muddled. We should also muddle this part a little bit. And also whatever the hell this thing is. I'm not sure what it is. Alright. What else is there? I think that's pretty much it for this one. I think the only thing that I'm missing is the kind of covering on the basket here, which provides some nice contrast. But you know, you learn different things here and there. Also, I did kind of forget what I was supposed to be doing with the other one here, so I forgot to title it. That is my bad. Maybe if I scroll back up, I can still fish it out. Was it also massing the contrasts? No, the foot line, right. Okay, and then this one was Rückenfigure. Okay. What else do we have in terms of art tips? I'm just trying to absorb as much as I can. How many values? Matteo asks, I know that value grouping is a technique you often use when sketching. How many values do you usually prefer? I have been experimenting with 4 values lately, white, black, bright, and dark, but that is so few it is a challenge in itself. Matteo, for this exercise to be useful, the fewer values, the better. As Howard Pyle said, the fewer tones, the simpler and better your pictures. As an exercise, try limiting it to 1 to 2 or 3 tones. You can do that by using markers and gouache, or by pre-mixing pools of color and oil. Sometimes it helps to think of families of values. A light family with some variation in the tones, and a dark family. Very much darker than any in the light family, but still distinguishable from one another. Those big families of tone don't have to be close or to white or black, by the way. The poetry of the Cornwall moonlight scene comes from handling those whites as a family of mid-range cool tones and saving the highest values for those sparkling windows. Another thing to keep in mind is that it's not how many values you have in your design, but how they're arranged. In the painting above, Pyle has basically set up a light family and a dark family and has gradiated between them. The impact of the design comes from that powerful grouping of the lights together into a single mass and the grouping of darks into a mysterious shadow. Pyle told his students, put your white against white, middle tones against grays, black against black, and then black and white where you want the center of interest. This sounds simple, but it is difficult to do. White against white. These ideas were in the air when Pyle and Cornwall were working. Many other leading artists, such as John Singer Sargent, were always grouping tones in arresting and memorable ways. Okay. I really like this one. Let's borrow that one. But families of tones, huh? Maybe I don't get it since I'm just doing practices in black and white. It's hard to say. The thing for me as well is that this seems to be more about from beginning to end painting style, right? I feel like this might not be necessarily what's best for me in my cel-shading journey, but you know what? Many roads lead to the same place. And it probably doesn't hurt to learn a thing or two about painterly shading. Ah, I see. So this is supposed to be the shadow of the canoe. Okay, and then we'll have much brighter. Maybe not that much brighter. Let me get my setup going. Actually, come to think of it, let me check on something real quick. It says that my bitrate's been all over the place. It says that it's unstable. Average stream bitrate is too high. I wonder what that means. That seems like the opposite of a problem if I'm being real. My burger is too juicy, my lobster is too buttery, etc. Okay. Actually, no, there's a little bit of a gap in the darkness there. Okay, what we want... slightly more contrast than that. Slightly lighter? A little bit more slightly than that. It's tough out here. Oh yeah, we also need to add the stripes to this thing, don't we? We should probably do that first. I'm doing something wrong here. Hang on. There we go. That makes them look much more rotated. Okay, keep this selected, and then we're gonna move on to this part back here, which is much smaller than I'm actually drawing it. Hold up. Okay, nice, 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 nice. Put this here, put that not there, put that there. Very nice. We can ad-lib a little bit. This isn't as dark as I'm drawing it, but, you know, it's still fairly dark. It's still kind of creating that difference. I guess the main thing is to kind of create that contrast first, huh? So sort of like this. I don't know. It's nice being able to study like this. I don't know. Maybe this is what co-working streams are about. Still have no fucking idea how people pull those off, though. I feel like the whole point of co-working streams is that you're not supposed to talk very much. But I love talking. It's... Okay, it's very strange. I never thought of myself as somebody who loved talking, but I found that it's one of my strengths when streaming that I just do not shut the fuck up. I've always got some anecdote, or I can always narrate what I'm doing or whatever. It's good though. I feel like it's especially valuable for people who like check on the VOD, since I feel like otherwise you don't get much visual noise might not be the right word, but audio content, I mean. I like the kind of stylish pose she's got going on too. She knows firmly who she is. Okay, here's what let's do. We're going to unselect the layer. We're going to select this section here. We're going to unselect the other crap that it's selected because it didn't close the line properly. There we go. Ditto over here. I'm gonna shrink that by 5 pixels or so. Fill that. Okay, make this section here pitch black. We can do a little bit something more. Is there something in the water there? No, no. Surely not. We should also probably shade in this triangle here. We should actually increase the contrast a little bit on the actual bridge part here. And then we can add just a little bit of a gap here for the bridge. And then the cool part is that we can go even higher. And, ooh, like there's a really cool light right here. And it's reflecting on the water side here. Might need to actually bump up the brightness a little bit on the lights there. Actually, there's going to be a little bit of a brighter area on the water here where the buildings are reflected too. But we'll burn that bridge when we cross it. Okay. We should increase the contrast of this one. Kind of want to see what happens if I do that. Interesting. Okay, and this one was called... What was this trick called? How many values? Okay, so value grouping. Okay, how about we find one more and then we call it a night? What about that rule? Given that you're a huge fan of Howard Pyle, as am I, there is the principle that he and many illustrators have talked about. The principle regarding the limiting a piece to 2 or 3 or Loomis's 4 values and having a piece have stopping power from several yards away. However, there are many pictures where this is not the case. I'm attaching one such sample by Peter Jablonski, who is phenomenal. He tends to use heavy shadows and condensed values. So is this an example of what Loomis talks about with a value structure that is low-key? Or is this example I provided simply breaking the Howard Pyle rule? If so, when do you think this is an appropriate strategy or structure to utilize? Hylam, wow, that is a very striking and memorable image. And you're right, it doesn't really follow the Pyle or Loomis rule. This one is successful, but maybe not so much in a poster-like way. It seems to depend on mystery and suggestion, achieved through gradation and close values. The values are definitely low-key, as you say, and the image would probably work best when not surrounded by a bright white computer screen. I suppose the lesson here is that the Pyle rule works for making a certain kind of picture, but maybe for not for all kinds of pictures. So my advice is to learn all the tricks, be sensitive to how they affect you emotionally, and have them in your toolkit for when you need them. Okay. That is something to bear in mind, too, is that, as he says, this is a lot for what is done for print-made or traditionally painted canvases. So it helps to have a very striking image from far away, especially when you're thinking about Norman Rockwell, right? That guy was an absolute freak for making posters. Planning a picture with a large group of figures. Karen Robinson says, I had just been looking at work by Wilhelm Gauss. I was looking at the Vienna Ball one, and puzzling over how you would even begin to render a piece with multiple figures. Do you make a really detailed drawing, pick a focal person, and fan out from there? What if there isn't really a focal person, the point being that there are loads of people? Karen, when you want to show a whole lot of figures in a scene, I think it's most important to work out the design in black and white preliminary sketches first. In the case of Gauss's Vienna Ball scene, there appears to be a related work done on toned paper. I'm not sure whether it's a preliminary sketch or how he proceeded, but I would guess that he sketched the figures loosely at first and then worked them out individually based on models and costume. One of my favorite Viennese multi-figure scenes is this early one done by Gustav Klimt and his brother before Gustav went to the more abstract work. Some of the best painters of crowd scenes conceive of the figures as part of their larger tonal masses. If you do that in the early planning stages of the picture, you'll avoid a tendency for a broken up or spotty effect. Do you see a cell phone in this 1860 painting? The woman in this 1860 painting seems to be looking at a cell phone, but really she's holding a little prayer book. The book is an important detail, since it may keep her on the narrow path of virtue. Okay? Once we get beyond that fun detail, look how the painting is arranged tonally. The light is coming from behind, spilling out into the foreground path in a large, unified triangular shape. To the left and right are well-organized dark shadow masses. The foliage masses create a circular window around the deep space view, and the foliage is lightened up as it goes back greater distances. So it is. Holy shit, this one's badass. Flatness and depth in painting. This scene was on the back cover of David Drake's paperback collection of military science fiction short stories called The Fleet Book 1. To make the typical 80s air battle look more incongruous, I imagined it taking place at a low altitude over farmland. I set up the scale by introducing the fighter craft in the foreground, and then repeating them back in the scene. I also softened the colors and compressed the lines of the croplands as they went back to the horizon. When I was in art school, many of the teachers spoke dogmatically about the importance of making the painting reinforce the flatness of the picture plane. But that idea never really interested me much. The flatness of the picture plane is a given. It is easy to make a painting look two-dimensional. Colored stuff on a rectangle of canvas. The real fun for me starts when the surface starts to fall away and pulls me back into its infinite depths. Okay. Integrating a figure into the background. Bad Coyote, awesome username, asks, do you have any advice for artists struggling to match foreground characters and background elements into a seamless picture? This one's helpful for me. 1. Overlap an element in front of the main figure. And that way the main figure isn't the most upfront thing in the picture anymore. 2. Be sure lighting is consistent on the figure and in the background. 3. Cast a shadow on the figure from some other element in the scene. 4. Match a color balance between the figure and the ground and vary the lighting in your scene. I'm kind of digging this one. Let's go for this one. I like that tip a lot. Although I'm not sure if I'm going to be able... Okay, it's going to be a tight squeeze, but we can make it. I feel like perhaps I haven't learned a whole... I haven't heard a whole lot. Alright, let's focus on making the drawing real quick. I feel like I haven't learned a lot, but that's to be expected since, you know, an intense training of a single day can help you get on your way, but it's not... You know, there's no substitute for like a longer term learning period. That's what I find so dissatisfying about a lot of the things that I learn, is that because I have no reason to recall them quickly unless it's like for stream or something, I'll often forget what I actually just learned. It's a little frustrating. Although you could, I suppose it is like anything else, something of a skill issue. It depends a lot on how much you're willing to sacrifice to learn that thing that you've just learned, so to speak. Like, yeah, you've read it, yeah, you've understood it, but have you learned it? It's a little bit more up in the air. Okay. Actually, let's take a quick look here. Hang on. Can we observe the windmill effect on this one? We've got dark on dark with the black hair on the shadow being cast. Maybe. We've got light against dark with the bright sunlit arm against the basket. Or maybe the dark on dark has something to do with the shorts. I'm not sure. Low-key, this is a vexing conundrum. What about this one? No, that overlaps too much with that. Yeah, I just need to go darker on the figure here. Something like that. I'm leaving out... I miss a lot of the space there, but that's okay. Actually, I might use this one here. Okay, and then we're gonna have this like this. Gosh, this is pretty tough. I don't know though. I think that's what I needed. It's not necessarily to say that I'm always down for a challenge. You know, I like taking it easy as much as anybody else. But I do think having an opportunity to really improve yourself should come at something of a cost. Yeah, I'm not sure how to... Oh, that works. And then we can make the figures back here like this. Okay. This one would be overlap element. Pardon me. Okay. So we have in total, how many value studies? We have 1, 2... I don't know if I should count this one. Oh man, have I been on the web browser this whole time? Oh shit! No puede ser! Oh, fuck. Okay. Well, that's how it goes. Okay, I'm not sure if I should count this one for one of the value studies. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here. Since nobody could see while I was making that last one, I'm so sorry. Ay Dios. I don't know. Something about it seems wrong. Maybe I could go and do a little bit more on this one. Hang on. Like, definitely the hat here is supposed to have more of a contrast. Oh, wait! Light on light. There you go. Also, I think I might have made his hand a little too long. Let's course correct for that. The hat, too. I think I made the hat way too long. Whoopsie daisies. Okay, but yeah. I think that's pretty good. I feel like I'm satisfied with that just for doing like value studies. I don't know. I think I'm going to take it easy today. I did have a pretty long day. So it was nice to have a nice low-key session like this one. I'll have to do more of these studies on my own time, though. In the meantime, I hope you all take care. Is there anybody streaming at this time? It's hard to say. Yeah, no, I think I'm just going to close things out here. Alright then. Take her easy. I'll see you all on Saturday for the Resident Evil 1 stream. Take care, and hopefully it'll go much better than it did like 3 weeks ago. Alright, take it easy. Bye-bye.